how much is enough. So when you're approaching retirement, this is an important figure because a lot of people will look at numbers and they think they need to keep on working more, that they don't have enough. And they'll keep on working and saving for some arbitrary number or goal, but they never actually sat down, did the math, figure out what is their magic number to retire on. So your number is going to really depend on your lifestyle or how much you spend. Someone that needs to spend $10,000 per month is going to obviously need to have more money than someone that spends $6,000 per month. So your budget or your lifestyle dictates to a degree how much you need to have or what is enough. So the best advice I can give you is important to track what you guys spend. So sit down, no one likes looking at budgets, but figure out and get a rough idea of how much do you guys typically spend on a month-to-month basis. And yes, some months are going to be higher than others with things that go on, but typically, if you just look at the last 12-month bank statements and took an average of what you guys are spending, that'll give you a pretty good idea of what your budget or your spending needs are. Next thing to look at is what is our guaranteed income sources. So you have your pension from Washington State, you've got Social Security, depending on your employer. Most of you guys have Social Security. Those are your guaranteed income sources. Now, ideally, when I do plans, I really like to have the guaranteed income sources cover all of our fixed expenses. So when you look at your budgets, we have things that we need or that are fixed that, we're going to come every single month. Things like property taxes, insurance bills, health insurance, rent if you're paying rent, food, utilities. So the things that aren't going to go away. You are always going to need them in some form or another that you really can't cut out, right? We can't just, move to the middle of the street and not pay rent. Or I guess you could, but probably wouldn't want to do that. You can't just not eat. So there are things that you're going to have to keep on paying in retirement. So I call those, sort of our fixed expenses or our needs. So it's important to have our guaranteed income cover our needs. Now, if pension, Social Security are not enough to cover our needs, that's when you start looking at things like the TAP annuity, for example. About 8 out of every 10 clients that come through my office now, we're looking at that TAP annuity. I always look at it regardless, but I'm often recommending it more and more now, especially when I see this type of shortfall. Now, I'm not saying to put all your money in there, but enough to cover the guaranteed income portion or the guaranteed expense portion. So if you look at your budget and you're spending $4,000 a month for fixed expenses and you have $2,000 for other stuff, travel, you go shopping, things like frivolous spending that isn't like make or break. Like you didn't necessarily need that to survive, but maybe like when you're shopping and enjoying stuff, right? So we call that our variable expenses. They kind of can go up and down depending if we're in a shopping mood or not, but they're not going to, make or break our livelihood or our health or anything like that. So those are our variable expenses. That variable expenses can be covered from your portfolio. It's not as crucial. Of course, if you want to guarantee it all, you certainly can. But if your fixed expenses going out every single month is $4,000, and between your pension and Social Security, you're only getting about $3,000. You have about $1,000 a month shortfall for the fixed expenses. So I would look at potentially a type of annuity just to pay out that $1,000 at a minimum, just to know that if the market went completely broke, your accounts disappeared overnight for whatever reason, and you had no money left to your name, at least you'd have this guaranteed income stream coming in to cover your monthly expenses and your bills. You don't have to worry so much about it. So if the market tanks hard on you and you feel like I'm going to run out of money, can't take money out per month, it's nice having a guaranteed income source where the amount of money you get per month is not dictated on how the stock market is currently doing or who's in office or however you want to spin it. So having this guaranteed income streams to help offset your income will help a lot. To actually see how much is enough, a lot of part of it is going to depend on what you're comfortable spending out of your portfolio and how your timeline works. So for example, when I'm doing a lot of early retirement planning, it's important that when I look at it is knowing that the current expenses or current income levels will change. Therefore, it is okay to take a little bit more of my portfolio now because I know I'm going to be backing off of it in a few years from now. So for example, I just helped someone retire this past school year at age 60. We don't plan taking Social Security to age 67. Therefore, we have a 7-year gap before that Social Security income hits. His current needs are more than the 5% I typically recommend, but I'm okay with it because it's only for a short period of time. I already carved out 5 years of income anyways, so I carved out 2 more years from his portfolio to make it work. We know that worst case scenario, he's going to have income from the portfolio for at least 7 years, and it may be a little bit higher withdrawal rate than we initially want for like the long term, but we know in 7 years from now, or sooner if we choose, Social Security is going to turn on, and it's going to drastically reduce the amount of income we need from that portfolio. So we're going to go from something like a 6-7% withdrawal rate down to like a 2 or 3. So we're going to back way off down the road, assuming his expenses keep track the way they are. So that's where having an advisor, having that type of knowledge can come in handy because it's not so cut and dry. It's not, I only have 4%, I only have 5%, I can't retire yet. right? So for example, if you had $1,000,000 and you're saying, hey, I'm going to draw 5% per year, that's only $50,000, per year. That's less than $5,000 a month. If you needed $5,000 a month and you did that, you'd be like, oh no, I'm short. I need to save X amount of dollars more. But you may not necessarily need to work or save more. It depends on your income stream, your situation. If you can get your budget down, that could help. Or maybe you take a little bit more in the earlier years, knowing that Social Security or you have other income streams coming in at a later point. So as far as how much is enough, it really, really depends on what your situation is and how much you want to take from it. So I use 5% for my clients. It's more than the 4% rule you might see. It's more than what the boggleheads will tell you at 2 or 3%, or the FIRE community when they're retiring in their 40s and 50s. So everyone has their own way of doing it. I use 5%, but the portfolio does have to be designed correctly. You can't just retire, leave things as is, take 5%, hope it all works out. It is an active strategy and it needs to be managed correctly. And if you don't have the time, expertise, or the emotional control to manage that, that's when things are going to get a little bit sticky and more emotional in retirement. And that's where having a professional come in and help you deal with that can really be worth it in the long run, because it just takes a lot of hassle out of your life. I read a study this past week that Vanguard did. They surveyed about 12,000 people, I believe, DIYers in retirement. And they stated that one thing that 78% of them underestimated was the amount of time it took to manage their own investments. And they self-reported that they spent on average 2 hours per week to manage their portfolio. Now, 2 hours a week may not seem like a lot, but when you add it up, it's at least 100 hours per year. That's 2 full weeks of working, doing nothing but looking at investments and moving things around. Now, that's the average. So you might not care. You may not look at it at all and spend no time on it. Or you might go the other way and spend 4 or 5 hours a week on it. Regardless, it's important to know your methodology with money, if that's going to be you, the person that likes to track things a lot, or you don't really have the desire, the need, or the time for it, so you tend not to look at it as often. Either way, if you're not looking often, you might miss opportunities. If you're looking at too much, you may be wasting too much time. So that's where offloading that responsibility to an advisor could really be worth it. But to give you guys some context here, or some key numbers, if you're going to use just the 5%, for example, basically it means for every $100,000 you have saved, you can pull about $5,000 out per year. And remember that if this is coming from a Plan 3 account, deferred comp, or like a pre-tax source, that money is going to be pre-tax. So even though I say it's $5,000 per year, how much you get in pocket is going to depending on what tax brackets you are in. So you might only end up with $4,000 in pocket. So taxes are something you need to account for when doing this type of math. But you get about $5,000 for every $100,000 you have saved. So what does that mean? So if I've got $1 million, that's $50,000. If I have $100,000, that's $25,000 per year. So homework, if you're trying to figure out what your number is go ahead and do quick projections, looking at what your Social Security is going to look like, what your pension is going to look like. That'll give you a guaranteed income threshold, and just do a projection on how much you expect to have or currently have saved for retirement. Take like 5% of that, and that'll give you a rough idea of how much income you potentially have. So to make it easy for you guys, if you looked at it and you said, hey, my pension is going to be $2,000 per month, Social Security is going to be $2,500 per month. Great. I have $4,500 per month on a guaranteed basis, and I've got $600,000 saved up between Plan 3, 403B, deferred comp, Roth IRAs, whatever it is. Just put it all in one pot. It's a lot easier than trying to add it all up to it's one number. And I know they're in different places and they have different rules, and it might be Roth, pre-tax, after tax, whatever. Just if you want quick, simple, dirty math, add it all together. So let's just say I have $600,000 roughly between me and my spouse's accounts. That's what we got saved. Take 5% of it. It's going to be $30,000 in this case. All right. So that's $30,000 per year between Social Security and pension. I said it was $4,500 per month. Annualize it out. So I'm going to get $54,000 per year between Social Security and pension. I'll get $30,000 per year from this portfolio. So my income expected is about $84,000 per year pre-tax for most people. That's what that works out to be. Divide that monthly, it's about $7,000 per month. So if you're like, hey, well, I actually only need $5,000 per month, maybe I have enough if this is your situation. And maybe remember that this is pre-tax. So take your taxes off the top. 20% is pretty safe. Most people really only need 15. But if your income is $7,000 per month and then you withheld for expected 20% taxes, you would bank about $5,600 per month to be your take home. So if you need to spend $5,000, you have a little bit of buffer room here. If it's your situation, you need $6,000 or $7,000. After taxes, we're not there yet. So now, we might have to save more or potentially take a little bit higher amount out. The other thing you guys can do is look at the TAP annuity, because the nice thing with TAP annuities is you don't have to do a 4 or 5% rule. They tell you what your guaranteed withdrawal rate is based on your age. So someone in the 60s might get 5.7% guaranteed, which means for every $100,000, I would get $5,700 per month coming to me, regardless of how market conditions are. If you're trying to take that from an investment portfolio, you can't guarantee that. I don't know what the markets are going to do. I can't say for sure that we can take 5% every single year. We might have to cut back if markets are terrible. The nice thing with annuity is there's no cutting back. In fact, it's the opposite. It grows at a guaranteed 3%. So it's $5,700 year one. It could be, $5,800 year two, and so on and so on. It does not stop. If you're looking like you might be a little bit short and want some more guaranteed income coming in, so a little more certainty, tap annuity, not a bad option at all if you qualify for it. Now, tap annuity is only for people on plan 3. If you're on plan 2, you can still use the state's annuity. It just won't be the tap annuity. Only difference is there's no guaranteed cost of living adjustment, but you still get the same payout rates. You still get a cost of living adjustment for free. You don't have to pay for it, and they don't reduce your benefits. The only difference is that cost of adjustment is based on the CPI index. So it could be 0% inflation is low, and it maxes out at 3%. So it's going to be somewhere in that window. So if you're someone like on the left 2 system, you can buy a left annuity, and you can still get guaranteed income from the state. It's just you're not going to get the guaranteed 3% cost of adjustment that people in the tap annuity has. But regardless, you can still get it. All right, so I hope that gave you guys a little bit more direction to figure out this question of how much is enough. Of course, if you guys want to dive deeper into it, this is something that we do with every day. So if you want to book a consultation with our office, the link to book is always going to be in the description below. On top of our free community, I'll dive deeper into these topics in there. You can always post questions inside there as well. We've got over 100 active members of the community, all Washington State employees that can help you answer these type of questions. So feel free to join. It's still currently free, so don't wait too long before the price goes up. All right, and until next time, always remember that your future depends on what you do today.